Hello and welcome to your in-depth weekly horoscope for week commencing the 26th of December for the Sun or the Ascendant. I'm going to give you a broad overview that we can all relate to, but please stay with me. I will then dive deep into each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. So as we come into this week, one of the aspects that's not really been discussed very much is the fact that Saturn, the planet of structure, in one of its two home zones of Aquarius, is in a semi-sextile with Neptune in the sign of Pisces. So we've got two planets located in their home berths, so they're in dignity. This semi-sextile is interesting because we're seeing some major structural changes in the world, and this week of course is very much to do with Capricornian energy because we have the Sun, Mercury, Venus and Pluto all in that sign. We also have Venus and Mercury coming into a conjunction on the 29th, despite Mercury going into retrograde that day. And also on the first day of 2023, Venus and Pluto come into an exact conjunction. So why am I talking about Saturn and Neptune in Aquarius and Pisces? Because I feel it's the direction of travel that's starting to open up. Once Pluto moves into Aquarius on the 24th of March, okay, it's just a brief journey through to early June this coming year, but it will be back for the long term through to year 44 from the 21st of January 2024. And the Aquarian energy that we're being pulled towards is more about a higher consciousness about how each of our individual behaviours, because Aquarius is very much the sign of the individual, but also how that collectively works with one another. Whereas Capricornian energy is much more to do with the established, the more ordered way of doing things that has become more the precedence over time. So I think that Capricornian energy, as we come into the start of 2023, is still really important. And having Venus and Pluto in a conjunction, my word, that can lead to some fated developments for many people throughout the year. But with Mercury in a retrograde, that's given us a bit of a clue that we need to rethink how we handle resources, how we approach things to do with materialism, just what value do we put on those old-fashioned notions of status, big properties, big cars. All of those things are going to come under increasing stress through the energy that's going to develop with Pluto in Aquarius. And Saturn has given us a taste over the last few years. So the angle between Saturn and Neptune is asking us to blend our perceptions and our sensitivities with the more progressive side of our thinking and how that interacts with other people. Now, it is also true to say that even though Mercury goes into the retrograde, which it will emerge from on January the 18th, it will still be in its post-shadow retrograde through to the 7th of February. So the early parts of 2023 are not necessarily going to be a straightforward plan. So we can set those New Year's resolutions. I should say that on New Year's Eve itself, the moon is in the sign of Taurus, where it really likes to be. It's exalted here, so a lovely place to be. And it's actually forging a beautiful semi-sextile to Jupiter, the planet of growth, newly arrived back in the sign of Aries. So I think that kind of says to us that the moon in Taurus is very much an appreciation of the good things in life, whether it's good food or good wine. But the Jupiterian energy is asking us through its rulership of Pisces to be mindful of the spiritual dimension, but also that we may have to refocus our longer term aims and goals because the world is changing radically, whether it's through automation, robotics, artificial intelligence, because we have the internet and technology has become at the core of so many of our lives. But as we come into the new year, and I'd like to wish you a very happy new year, On Sunday, the first day of this new dawn, that combination between Venus and Pluto is something to be mindful of, particularly in terms of business situations, because someone very charming and very persuasive is a person many of us will encounter in the new year. But we need to make sure that we're watching out for what the true motivations are of them and perhaps of ourselves on that particular event. So a lot of energy in the sign of Capricorn. That is asking us to think about goals, ambitions, and also it could be a culmination of a lot of effort that's gone in over a long period of time, where some people could get a deserved reward. But I think for many of us, what's absolutely true about modern life is that staying exactly as we are just isn't really an option, because the environment around us, quite literally, but also the interhumanal environment, is quite literally changing by the second. So sticking with those old objectives and those old ways of measuring what's important in life, such as the size of the property we live in, are going to make way much more for how we connect to other people and how we can find kinship, but also how we can find our individuality beyond the realm of purely making money. And I must stress, there's absolutely nothing wrong with making money whatsoever. So please stay with me for your in-depth zodiac forecast. But if you've yet to get your year 2023 12-month personal forecast, if you order it now, you can get your life roadmap as well, 2 charts, and 30% off. But I will also give you your general 12-month forecast, your Chinese forecast for the year, and your Indian forecast. They're all 3 within the package. Please see the link below. So Cancer, your week commencing the 26th of December forecast. It's all about relationships still, even more so because Venus and Mercury come into an exact conjunction. Mercury goes retrograde, and of course Venus then goes on to forge an exact conjunction on the first day of the new year. What do relationships mean? What does the 7th house mean? The 7th house can be that point where we reach a consensus with others, and where it works really well, it's give and take. It's a bit of a seesaw at times. We don't always get what we want, but if we're prepared to sort of try to find those points of commonality rather than being totally focused on the things that make us different, then that could make for a better world. So Mercury going backwards here could see you thinking very deeply about how you've approached relationships, but also it gives you an opportunity to recognize the quality of your listening skills. I think for most of us, even if we do like to be fairly caring, we can always improve our listening skills, because we can be so easily distracted these days by social media and just shortness of time, being weary, all the kind of modern ailments that we all suffer with. So I think Mercury retrograde can see you rethink your approach to relationships, but I don't mean that in a negative way. It can be something that you can gain from. It could be that your skills are very, very strong in that area. So the 7th house for you is your point of contact with others. And this is where I feel a lot of Cancer people can learn, because your obviously planetary glyph is the crab. The crab by nature goes left and right, scuttles under the sand. So there is a part of you that can dislike confrontation. And I feel that what this energy that's manifesting this week, particularly with Venus coming into the conjunction with Pluto, is learn to have the confidence to step forward and engage. It's not all going to be on your terms. So the issue really is about, because all this energy is occurring in the sign opposite yours, you're having to examine how perhaps other people perceive you or how you engage with them. And in ancient astrology, the 7th house was the sector of open enemies. It's not quite characterized as the way modern astrology thinks that this can be a very engaging point. It can be much more challenging, but it can also be very good for if you want to take on some kind of combative role, dealing with the public, sales rep, that kind of stuff. However, the combination between Venus and Pluto is very deep indeed. And that suggests, because it occurs at the turn of the year, it's absolutely exact on the 1st. I think it comes into a conjunction about an hour after the day the new year dawns. But I feel it's an opportunity to really gain a lot from how you connect to others, especially if you have been in a very protective state for a long time, not least because of Pluto being in your 7th house, has perhaps made you, very wary, very cynical of what other people's motives are. It goes back to the football analogy or the soccer analogy I often use. If we don't try to score goals, then we can perhaps have a neutral experience, come out with a 0-0 or a 1-1 draw, and it seems that honours are even, but actually we don't get that enriched. So sometimes we have to step outside our comfort zone in order to get the benefits. And I think that's really what you're being asked to do for this new year. Let go of the control or the withdrawal that Cancerian people can do is actually a lot to do with fear. It's fearful behaviour. It's not open behaviour. It's closing out the space, which freezes the energy in between you and others. So if you can find ways to work on that, however skilled you may be at relating, even if it means relating with people in your locality, in your local community group or work you don't necessarily particularly like, but see it as your challenge this year to get better at it, get better at dealing with the people you don't necessarily find comfortable, but whilst you still retain your sense of self in the process. Because if we become too 7th house orientated, we spend so much time trying to please others, we lose sight of who we are. So it is a tipping point to get that sweet point. But if you're single, I would very much doubt that there won't be some kind of interaction by the end of this coming year, even if it's a new friendship, a new colleague you really get on well with. But if you're in a relationship which is bumping along the bottom, this particular set of influences is asking you to think very carefully about how maybe you could change your approach and how that might attract different energy from the people you're interlocking with. I hope you have a very happy new year, and goodbye for now.